Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to explore the fascinating history of dental challenges and hygiene. It's a story of endurance, ingenuity, and some unusual solutions. How did people manage toothaches thousands of years ago without modern dentists? What caused their discomfort? And how did they respond? From the gritty bread of ancient Egypt to the harsh remedies of medieval Europe, the suffering of Louis XV, and we'll see the myth that surrounds George Washington's wooden teeth. We'll uncover the practices, problems, and beliefs that shaped their world. It's a long journey through time, so settle in, hit that like and subscribe buttons, and let's dive into a past that puts your toothbrush in a whole new light. First stop, ancient Egypt. Starting around 3100 BCE, a civilization that thrived for over 3,000 years. These were the people who built the pyramids and perfected mummification. But their teeth tell a tougher story. The main culprit? Their daily bread, known as ta, made from emmer wheat or barley. Grinding it with sandstone querns left grit in the dough, and desert sand blew into everything they ate. A 2013 study of over 4,000 mummies found that most had teeth worn flat by early adulthood. Enamel eroded, dentin was exposed. Cavities weren't common because sugar hadn't arrived yet, but that constant wear cracked teeth, opening the door to abscesses, painful infections in the jaw that could lead to sepsis, a life-threatening condition. We'll talk more about this later. Add in parasites like schistosomiasis from Nile water, which weakened enamel, and malnutrition during lean years. And it's a brutal picture. One example from around 2400 BCE in the 5th dynasty shows a mummy with a jaw displaying severe decay. It's hard to imagine how he managed to eat. So how did they deal with this? Dental hygiene was minimal, no toothbrushes or floss. Loose teeth were extracted, sometimes with bronze forceps, sometimes just with fingers. Mummies show the evidence in their scars. For abscesses, healers used knives to lance and drain the pus, relieving pressure and pain. The elite had access to impressive fixes. Gold wire bridges are found in some tombs, like those from the era of Prince Sabu, though his specific connection is debated. Even workers at Giza had infirmaries, likely treating injuries and broken jaws from hauling massive stones. But what about remedies? The Ebers Papyrus, written around 1550 BCE, offers a window into their approach. Over 700 medical recipes. For toothaches, they turn to pastes made from cumin, frankincense, or garlic, which has natural antiseptic properties. Honey was applied to abscesses, a practical choice since it fights infection. One recipe for strengthening teeth mixed ochre and malachite, colorful but ineffective. Pain relief was limited. There was no anesthesia, though beer might have dulled the edge just a little. Their beliefs shaped all of this. Teeth were connected to Ma'at, the divine order of the universe. Pain or tooth loss could signal displeasure from Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of healing and destruction. Her priests often served as healers, blending chants and spells with physical treatments. Amulets like scarabs were worn to ward off evil breaths in the mouth. And in death, mummification preserved teeth for the afterlife, a reflection of how vital they were and even beyond this world. Following up on our next civilization, we find Mesopotamia, Sumer, and Babylon. Starting around 3000 BCE, the cradle of writing and cities. Their dental story shifts from Egypt's less grit, more decay, and belief. The issue started with barley bread, ground with stone, which wore down teeth much like in Egypt. But sticky dates, rich in natural sugars, brought a new problem. Well, introducing cavities. One Babylonian skull from around 2500 BCE reveals a molar decayed to the root, a sign of this shift. Abscesses were common too. Jawbones from Ur show holes where infections broke through. Parasites and poor sanitation added to the strain, and with life expectancy averaging around 35, dental health was one of many challenges. Their practices weren't practical but rough. They may have used the miswak twig from the plant Salvadora persica, a natural toothbrush with antiseptic sap, still seen in the Middle East, though its use this early isn't certain. Extractions relied on fingers or crude pliers, leaving little room for precisions, and healers sometimes packed gums with clay or resin, a temporary fix that rarely lasted. Talk about having a dry mouth or a stuffed mouth. Remedies come from cuneiform tablets, like those preserved at Nineveh from around 1800 BCE. Here we have the use of myrrh paste, known for reducing swelling, and it was applied to inflamed gums, while beer rinses might have cleaned out decay. Pain relief here included bitter roots like licorice, which was widely available, and rare opium poppy brews for the lucky few. One unusual remedy, possibly donkey dung on gums, was thought to cleanse, though evidence is thin and it likely did little good. The idea of worms causing dental issues is first recorded around this time in a Sumerian text from around 5000 BCE, discovered on a clay tablet from Nippur, modern Iraq. This tablet, one of the oldest written medical records, describes a creation myth where tooth decay arises from worms born in the cosmos. The incantation reads in part, "After Anu had created the heavens, the worm came before Shamash and Ea, weeping, 'What will you give me to eat?' 'I will give you the ripe fig and the apricot.' 'Or what use are they to me?' 'Set me to dwell between the teeth and the jawbone.'" Sumerians, part of the early Mesopotamian civilizations, viewed disease as supernatural. In this case, tooth pain, likely from cavities or abscesses, was attributed to these mythical worms, treated with incantations rather than physical removal. Beliefs shaped their approach, though tooth pain was seen as supernatural, often blamed on demons like Lamashtu, a feared spirit tied to disease. Healers crafted amulets, sometimes drilled to ward off these forces, pairing them with incantations like "Begone, evil breath of the underworld." Medicine blended prayer and practice. Exorcism often took priority over physical cures. Mesopotamia's dental struggles were a mix of wear, decay, and a deep-seated faith, less advanced tools, more reliance on the unseen. On our next stop, we go a few centuries later, actually a few millennia, to classical Greece, around 500 BCE. The age of philosophy meets early dental efforts. The issue grew with their diet. Honey, figs, and grapes, rich in natural sugars, at least for those who could afford them, increased cavity rates compared to earlier times. Coarse bread still wore down teeth, while war brought trauma like jaws injuries from battles such as Marathon. One Athenian skeleton from the 4th century BCE reveals molars heavily worn, with signs of abscesses. Tooth loss was common by age 40, though elites likely managed to appear much better. So far we heard about abscesses. Where are they? With a hint of what they are, but an abscess is a nasty little pocket of pus that can form in or around a tooth. And it's about as fun as it sounds. It usually happens when bacteria sneak into the tooth through a cavity crack or an injury and start a party in the pulp. The soft core, where the nerves and blood vessels live, the infection festers, your immune system fights back, and boom, a swollen pus-filled bump. It's a dental horror show. Think throbbing pain, swelling, maybe a bad taste, and if it bursts. And in rough cases, fever or a face that looks like you lost in a bar fight. Dentists usually drain it, might yank the tooth out, and if it's toast, or do a root canal to save it. Antibiotics can help if the infection is spreading, but ancient times could only dream of these procedures. They only knew remedy at the time, they only knew extraction. Extractions during this time were done with bronze pliers, a step up from fingers. Some healers may have drilled shallow caries with hand-twisted tools. Early attempts at repair, though rare. Brushing, of course, wasn't known, but saltwater rinses of linen rags helped clean plaque. A rare Corinthian jaw from this era shows iron pins, possibly an attempt at a dental bridge. Remedies drew from observation and tradition. Hippocrates, around 400 BCE, recommended willow bark containing salicylic acid, a natural pain reliever, or possibly burned eggshells on gums, though its benefit is unclear. Wine-soaked clothes offered mild numbing. Opium was a costly import and was reserved for severe cases. One text, possibly linked to Aristotle, mentions rubbing teeth with oregano, which has mild antiseptic qualities, though its use is uncertain. Belief centered on the four humors during the classical ancient Greece time: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Toothaches signaled an imbalance, perhaps an excess humor affecting the jaw. Apollo, god of healing, received prayers, while Asclepius' shrines provided dream-based cures. Patients slept, seeking divine guidance. Rational ideas emerged, but faith in the gods remained strong. Greece combined reason with ritual, a step toward understanding teeth, though much remained unresolved. From the ancient Greece classical period, we go to Rome next. Around 100 CE, power and wealth met evolving dental challenges. The issues grew with diet. Honey, dried fruit, and rare imported sweets increased tooth decay, though not as fast as modern sugars. Coarse bread continued to wear teeth down, while gladiator fights and combat left some with cracked molars. A skeleton from Pompeii, buried in 79 CE, shows significant cavities in several teeth, and abscesses could lead to fatal blood poisoning. Elites cared deeply about their appearance. Patients faced a higher rate of tooth loss. Practices here took bold steps. Urine mouthwash. Introducing urine mouthwash. Yes, you heard that right. Rich in ammonia, was used to whiten teeth. Some shipped from Portugal in amphora prized for quality. Dentists, known as dentatores, drilled caries with bow drills, a careful but painful process. Wealthy Romans displayed gold bridges or false teeth made from ivory or bone, though these were very uncommon. Mastic gum from Chios, freshened breath, and toothpicks were a routine tool. Remedies mixed practicality with tradition. Oil from spices, possibly imported, offered numbing relief. Though cloves may not have reached Rome yet, vinegar rinses helped combat decay, while Scribonius Largus, a physician around 47 CE, blended myrrh and pepper for toothaches. Urine served as both a rinse and a remedy, effective to a degree despite its crudeness. Brushing wasn't practiced. Hygiene focused on visible results. Beliefs tied teeth to status. White smiles signaled power. Gaps hinted at poverty. Asclepius, the healing god, received votive tooth offerings at shrines. Pliny the Elder, writing around 77 CE, suggested frog ashes for pain, an ineffective superstition. Practical care coexisted with symbolic acts. Rome's approach to teeth combined innovation, tradition, and a touch of excess, progress with limits. Medieval Europe, we go from 500 to 1500 CE. It was a challenging time for teeth, but that was guided deeply by faith. When the Crusaders, starting in the late 11th century, encountered the Islamic world, they came across sugar, which was already a prized commodity there, often used in medicine as a luxury sweetener. The Crusades, we're talking about the year 1095 to 1291, introduced Europeans to the sweet salt, as some called it, sparking a fascination. Returning crusaders brought tales and small amounts of sugars back, but it wasn't a major import yet. It was too rare and expensive. A real influx came later through trade with the Middle East and North Africa, especially via Venice or other Mediterranean hubs, and by the 13th and 14th centuries. Sugar production then spread to places like Sicily and Spain, where the climate suited for cane cultivation, often using techniques learned from Arab growers. Sugar raised cavity rates among those, of course, who could afford it. Studies of late medieval skulls show decay in nearly half of those of some samples. Coarse rye bread wore down teeth, here once again, while malnutrition from famines disrupted enamel development. Abscesses often turn septic, a fatal risk for both kings and peasants. A 14th century jaw from London reveals holes from persistent infection. We talk about sepsis. What does that mean? Sepsis after a raw tooth extraction refers to a life-threatening condition where the body's response to an infection that originates from the extraction site, and it can spiral out of control. When a tooth is pulled, it leaves an open wound in the gum and bone. If bacteria, say from dirty tools or an unwashed mouth or leftover debris gets in, an infection can start. Normally, the immune system handles it. But if the infection spreads beyond the site into the bloodstream, you get sepsis. This triggers a chain reaction, widespread inflammation, blood clots, and leaking blood vessels, which can starve organs of oxygen and nutrients. Symptoms include fever, rapid heart rate, confusion, and if unchecked, organ failure and death. So this is a deadly cocktail in the end. Practices around the Middle Ages were crude, but also thought as practical. Here we have barbers that extracted teeth with pliers or levers, relying on force rather than skill, sometimes causing jaw injuries. Brushing, of course, wasn't still unknown, and wine or vinegar rinses or occasionally hazel twig served as hygiene. Monasteries provided rare care. One 12th century account suggests a monk wired a loose tooth with linen, though evidence is scarce. Remedies blended tradition and imports. Clove tonics, valued for their numbing effect, or opium drops from poppy fields eased severe pain. Sage poultices soothed inflamed gums, while a 1350 herbal recommends boiling toothworth in ale, a folk remedy with little real benefit. Bloodletting aimed to balance humors but offered no help for teeth. Beliefs rooted pain in spirituality. Toothaches were seen as divine punishment for sin. Saint Apollonia, martyred in 249 CE by having her teeth pulled, became the patron of dentistry. Pilgrims sought relief from her relics. Saint Apollonia's gruesome torture, particularly the loss of her teeth, led to her becoming the patron saint of dentistry and those suffering from toothaches or dental problems. She is often depicted in art holding a tooth with pincers or wearing a necklace with a golden tooth, symbolizing her suffering. Her feast day is celebrated on February 9th in both the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. A 13th century text attributes pain to tooth worms, treated with prayer or fumigation rather than drilling. If you recall, we already came across to this tooth worms from another civilization. Faith often overshadowed physical solutions. The toothworm theory resurfaced prominently in medieval Europe, especially from the 13th century onward, though it wasn't created there. Texts like the Gilbertus Anglicus Compendium Medicina from 1240 explicitly blame worms for tooth pain, recommending fumigation, burning leek seeds, or herbal paste to kill them. Archaeological finds show medieval skulls with caries supporting the pain they sought to explain. In Europe, this fit the era's mix of superstition and limited science. The Church endorsed ideas of sin or unseen forces causing illness, and the worm theory, possibly inherited from earlier tradition, was a tangible scapegoat. Medieval teeth reflect a time of endurance shaped by both suffering and devotion. Around a similar timeline in more distant lands, the Arabs, particularly during the Islamic Golden Age, roughly from the 8th to the 13th century, played a significant role in advancing medical and scientific knowledge, including dental practices. This period saw Muslim scholars, physicians, and scientists preserve, translate, and build upon the works of earlier civilizations, like the Greek, Roman, Persian, and Indian, while adding their own innovations. Their contributions to dentistry were part of a broader flourishing of medicine, driven by a culture that valued learning, observation, and practical applications, often justified as an act of piety rooted in Islamic principles of health and cleanliness. A teeth cleaning twig from the Salvadora persica tree, miswak was emphasized in Islamic tradition long before the Golden Age, since the 7th century, praised in the Hadiths as cleansing for the mouth and pleasing to the Lord. It was used for oral hygiene and predates modern toothpaste that was later invented much later in the 19th century. Studies today confirm its antibacterial properties, aligning with its historical use by Arabs and Muslims. The emphasis of cleanliness in Islam, evident in rituals like wudu, ablution, extended to dental care. Miswak became a cultural and religious staple used before prayers and was seen as both practical and spiritual. Arab physicians performed extractions, treated toothaches with herbal remedies like Ioscamus niger smoke, and addressed gum issues. Unlike Europe, where barbers often handled teeth, dentistry in the early Islamic world was part of physicians' broader practice. Ophthalmology split off as a specialty, but dentistry didn't turn until much later. Al-Zahawi's tools and Avicenna's systematic approach show innovation beyond preservation. They tackled pain relief, like clove oil, and structural issues, for example, wiring loose teeth. This laid the groundwork for later European dentistry, which rediscovered these ideas via Arabic translations during the Renaissance. Moving on to 17th century France with Louis XV, the Sun King. He was notorious for having a rough time with his teeth, a saga that mirrors the brutal medical realities of his time. Born in 1638, he ruled from 1643 until his death in 1715, and his dental woes became a grim footnote to his magnificent reign. Here's the historical rundown on him and his teeth. By his 40s, Louis' dental health was a wreck, likely from a mix of poor hygiene and a sugar-heavy diet, thin candled fruits and wine, and of course genetics. Tooth decay was rampant in their era. Even royalty couldn't escape it, as dental care was still primitive. Brushing wasn't common, and cleaning might mean a quick rinse with vinegar or herbs, if anything. By 1685, at age 46, Louis faced a crisis. Chronic toothaches and abscesses, probably in his upper jaw, turned into a full-blown infection. Abscesses then were killers. Bacteria could spread to the brain or bloodstream, so his physician stepped in. On January 10, 1685, at Versailles, Louis underwent a brutal procedure. His chief surgeon, Charles Dubois, and first physician, Guy Cresson-Fagon, decided to extract multiple teeth from his upper left jaw. No anesthesia, just raw endurance. Patients might get alcohol or opium if lucky, but Louis, even the stoic king, likely toughed it out. The tools? Crude pliers or a pelican, a claw-like dental extractor. The catch? Dubois botched it. While pulling a tooth, he shattered part of Louis's upper palate, leaving a hole between his mouth and nasal cavity. Historical accounts like those from the Duke of Saint-Simon, if you recall, the Duke of Saint-Simon memoirs, note pus and bone fragments came with the teeth. Gruesome stuff. The aftermath was worse. The hole didn't heal right, and food or liquid would leak through his nose when he ate, a humiliating flaw for a man obsessed with dignity. To fix it, they cauterized the wound with a red-hot iron, searing the tissue shut over multiple sessions. Infection lingered, though, and Louis lost more teeth over time. Some say half his upper jaw was gone by his 50s. His breath reportedly stank, and couriers winced at close range, though not dare say it. By 1715, when gangrene killed him at age 76, his mouth was a ruin, though the fatal infection started in his leg, not his teeth. This dental hell shaped his image indirectly. Louis' famous portraits, stern, wigged, flawless, hid the reality. He avoided smiling wide, favoring close-lip gravitas, possibly self-conscious about gaps or pain. Medically, it's a miracle he survived the 1685 ordeal. Sepsis was common post-extraction. His case even spurred dental progress. Later French surgeons like Pierre Fauchard, the father of modern dentistry, emerged in the 18th century, partly inspired by such royal disasters. By the late 18th century, sugar flowed into Europe from the Caribbean colonies, a mark of wealth and prestige. At Versailles, it fueled an array of desserts, pastries, macarons, and cakes, often blended with honey, fruit preserves, or orange blossom, central to royal feasts. If you recall, the phrase, "let them eat cake," qu'ils mangent de la brioche, wrongly tied to Marie Antoinette, reflected an elite immersed in sweets, while peasants struggled. This indulgence came with a price. Tooth decay increased, outpacing the wear of earlier eras. An aristocrat's jaw from the 1790s examined after death showed multiple cavities, evidence that even nobles faced dental decline. Toothbrushing, of course, was not practiced. Couriers relied on wine or water rinses and toothpicks, leaving sugar to linger in their mouths. Dental care remained basic, even for royalty. Louis XVI physician described his teeth as uneven but functional, while Marie Antoinette, with her refined Habsburg jaw, may have endured frequent toothaches due to her diet. Clove oil, a natural pain reliever, was among the better remedies, though some clung to old habits like urine mouthwash, a fading Roman practice with limited use. Barber surgeons performed extractions using arrow pliers, offering brandy but no true anesthesia. A noble skull from the 1780s reveals a pulled molar, its socket rough but healed, showing the era's harsh methods. Image-conscious royals like Marie Antoinette likely concealed gaps with fans or subtle smiles, as gold bridges were uncommon. Moving on to the New World, dentistry at the birth of the United States was less stars and stripes and more gums and gripes. We definitely inherited that from the Brits, along with tea, taxes, and a stiff upper lip that probably hit some wobbly chompers. I mean, no offense to our friends across the pond, but their teeth have always had a certain charm, like a picket fence after a storm. Dental practices in the 18th century America were a grim affair, more similar to a battlefield surgery than anything resembling modern care. At the time of the nation's founding, dentistry wasn't a specialized profession yet. It was a chaotic free-for-all handled by a motley crew of barbers, blacksmiths, surgeons, and itinerant tooth pullers who roamed towns with pliers and bravado. The average American colonist's dental health was abysmal, plagued by poor diet, limited hygiene, and a complete lack of preventive care. Sugar from the expanding trade with the Caribbean didn't help, turning mouths into cavities playgrounds. Tooth extraction was the go-to solution since it was quick, cheap, and didn't require much skill. Tools were crude. Think forceps, dental keys, a claw-like device that twisted teeth out, and sometimes just a hammer and chisel if things got desperate. Anesthesia? Well, forget it. Patients might get a swig of whiskey or rum if they were lucky, but most just gritted their teeth, or what was left of them, through the agony. Barbers, already handy with sharp objects, doubled as dentists, offering a haircut and a tooth yank in one sitting. Blacksmiths, with their metalworking skills, occasionally stepped in to forge tools or even whip it up with primitive fillings, though that was rare. George Washington is famously associated with the myth of having wooden teeth, but that's not entirely accurate. Throughout his life, Washington suffered from persistent dental issues, losing his first tooth in his 20s and eventually most of them by the time he became president. By his inauguration in 1789, he reportedly had only one natural tooth left, a premolar. His dental troubles were likely due to a combination of poor diet, genetics, and the limited dental care of the 18th century, which often involved crude extractions rather than preventive hygiene. Instead of wooden dentures, Washington wore several sets made from materials like human teeth, possibly sourced from enslaved people or purchased, ivory, and metal, like gold and lead tin alloys. These were crafted by dentists such as John Greenwood. Contrary to the wooden myth, possibly sparked by the stained wood-like appearance of ivory over time, his dentures were functional but uncomfortable, often held in place with springs. They distorted his facial appearance, giving his jaw that iconic, slightly swollen look in portraits, and he took measures to manage the pain, including use laudanum, that was an opium tincture. George Washington dentures included human teeth, and evidence suggests some of these were likely obtained from enslaved people on his plantation, Mount Vernon, or from other sources. In the 18th century, it was not uncommon for wealthy individuals to acquire teeth from the poor, prisoners, or the enslaved, sometimes through coercion or outright exploitation rather than what we'd consider a fair transaction today. A specific ledger entry from 1784 shows Washington's paying £6 and 2 shillings to African American slaves for 9 teeth, as documented by his accounts. Historians debate the exact circumstances, whether these were willingly sold by enslaved individuals for cash or extracted under duress. Given the power imbalance of slavery, consent would have been murky at best. The teeth were then sent to his dentist, Dr. John Greenwood, to be incorporated into dentures. Washington's correspondence show that he was meticulous about dental hygiene for his time, requesting toothbrushes and cleaning powders, though the 18th century oral care was very primitive compared to today. Treatments involved mercury-based compounds. That was very common. That might have worsened his tooth decay. Fillings existed but were experimental and brutal. Some dentists drilled cavities with hand-powered tools. Imagine a slow, squeaky torture device and pack them with molten lead, tin, or gold if you had the cash. Most folks could not afford that, so they lived with rot until extraction was inevitable. Toothbrushes were a luxury. Bristol ones from Europe, made with horse or boar hair, started trickling in from Europe, but many colonists stuck to rags, salt, or twigs to scrub their mouths, if they bothered at all. Tooth powder, often abrasive concoctions of chalk or charcoal, was another option, though it could grind enamel down as much as clean it. The British influence was undeniable. Colonial dental habits mirrored England's, where oral care was an afterthought and crooked, decayed teeth were just part of life. Trained dentists were scarce, and America's first dental school, the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery, didn't open until 1840. Before that, practitioners learned by apprenticeship of trial and error, often on screaming patients. Paul Revere, yes, that Paul Revere, even moonlighted as a dentist, and crafting dentures and wiring teeth between his midnight rides and silversmith gigs. In short, 18th century American dentistry was a wild, toothless frontier, painful, improvised, and about as sophisticated as a musket shot. It's no wonder people prayed to Santa Polonia for relief. They needed a miracle to survive the care they got. Modern dentistry as we know it emerged in the early 18th century. It was a little bit more refined from the French Pierre Fauchard, a French surgeon that transformed dental care into a scientific discipline. In 1728, he published Le Chirurgien Dentiste, the first comprehensive dental textbook detailing tooth restoration with fillings, scaling tartar, and straightening teeth with wires. Fauchard invented specialized tools like refined forceps and an early dental drill, and advocated for dentists as a distinct profession. Written in French during the Enlightenment, his work emphasized observation and prevention, laying a systematic foundation that influenced Europe and beyond, marking the birth of a field that evolved into today's advanced practices. Today's dentistry has transformed. Sugar is widespread. Studies show most adults experience cavities, but science now equips us to respond. Since the 1938 introduction of nylon toothbrushes, we've developed fluoride toothpaste in the 1950s, ultrasonic scalers, and electric drills that far surpass 18th century bow drills. Fillings have evolved too. Lead and gold are rare options today, replaced by composites that blend with natural teeth color. Pain management has advanced significantly. Modern anesthesia, starting with lidocaine in 1943, and extending to IV sedation, ensures extractions are far more comfortable than with clove oil or brandy. Root canals, once lengthy and difficult, now benefit from rotary tools and digital imaging, making them faster, more precise, and less daunting. Antibiotics like penicillin, widely used since the 1940s, and their successors have turned life-threatening infection into manageable conditions. Today, dentistry blends advanced technology with a deep understanding of oral health role in overall wellness. Routine care starts with tools like digital x-rays and intraoral cameras, letting dentists spot decay or gum issues with minimal radiation and maximum clarity. Preventive hygiene is king. Fluoride treatments, sealants, and electric toothbrushes with smart sensors. Some even sync to apps to track brushing habits, and they help keep cavities at bay. The average person's toothpaste now packs ingredients like hydroxyapatite or peptides to remineralize enamel, a far cry from the chalk and herb mixes of centuries past. For treatments, it's a golden age. Lasers zap cavities without drills, often skipping anesthesia. 3D printing churns out crowns, bridges, and aligners like Invisalign in hours, not weeks. Artificial intelligence is even in the mix. Software analyzes X-rays to flag issues faster than the human eye, and some clinics use AI-driven robots for precise implant placement. Speaking of implants, titanium posts fused to bone have become routine for replacing lost teeth, a sci-fi leap from Washington's clunky dentures. Cosmetic dentistry is booming too. Veneers, whitening with LED-activated gels, and digital smile design let people tweak their grins with Hollywood precision. Biotech's pushing boundaries further. Researchers are testing stem cells therapies to regrow teeth, and clinical trials for enamel regenerating gels are underway as of 2025. Yet, it's not all perfect. Access can remain uneven, and high-end treatments like implants can cost thousands. Here we are at the end of our journey, from Egypt's enduring struggle with gritty bread to Rome's use of urine rinses. Dental history reflects a long and varied journey. Each culture tackled distinct challenges, with abrasion in Egypt, decay in later eras, spirits in Mesopotamia, sin in medieval Europe, using tools, herbs, and beliefs of their time. Well, next time you brush your teeth, consider how thousands of years of dental difficulties led to today's advances. Which approach you think stands out the most? Mesopotamian demon rituals or medieval tooth cures or urine rinses? Share your thoughts below, subscribe for more historical insights. So, here's a brief story. So here I am, sweating in the dentist's chair, when I spot this sign. The sign says, "You don't have to brush all of your teeth, just the ones you want to keep." At that moment I laughed, and then I stopped, and I said, what kind of savage wisdom is that? Like the dentist is daring me to play tooth roulette. Well, go ahead, skip a day, and see who is left standing. As a last warning, take care of your teeth, and we're so lucky to be born during this time. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.